Program Officer at Ford Foundation, and at some stage, I do look forward to introducing and I will reserve the word, what term I will choose to use. Panelists? No. What? I'll come to that. I wanted to first of all convey my sincere gratitude and congratulations. Vimla ji, it was such a pleasure to listen to you. You know, some of the words that you use will ring for a long time in my mind. Tala band nahi kholne ki zarurat hai, I think was among the best ones. And of course, at the end of the day, we are all human beings. We want to live in a human world, not a man's world. You don't want to be treated as God. I just thought that these were absolutely remarkable words. And frankly, as I was listening to you, allow me to say that I was wondering what new can we bring to the table in addition to what you've already shared. So thank you, and I do hope that we'll be able to, with the esteemed colleagues that I have on the panel, bring into light some of the new ideas and some of the conversations that you very rightly kicked off. So thank you very much for setting the stage for us. I wanted to begin by saying that, first of all, this is lunchtime. I'm hungry. I don't know about others. But I'm very happy that there are so many of you who have chosen this subject over food. I hope that my hypothesis is correct, is all I can say. So among many things, one of the things that's common between or among a few things, one you might not know, and I'm not sure if Google will give you the correct answer on this one. We have had 18 governors of Reserve Bank of India in independent India. We have had an equal number of chief economic advisors in independent India. We have had many chief election commissioners, many chief judges, chief justices of India, many state finance ministers. What is one thing in common across all these? None of them, none in 75 years, none of these positions has been held by women. And I think it's time to change. So what is the good news? The good news is that for three reasons, at least in my opinion, we are standing in some ways at the cusp of making history. Not only as women, but also as a country, as a group of people who firmly believe, led by our own Honorable Prime Minister, when he raised the pitch of women-led development at a forum none less than the G20 forum very recently. He's kind of invoked women-led development as one of the national missions, as well as a chief priority for G20 group of countries. I think is the first very big, important opportunity for us. The second reason why we should also celebrate is the fact that we now have a Nobel Prize winner in economics, Claudia Golden, whose work on gender and reasons why there's gender gap in wages, in education, in life, is now acknowledged by none other than the Nobel Committee itself. And I think it's a reason to celebrate. It, of course, is a reason for us to begin to reflect on this. But it's a moment that the fact that there's a global recognition of this problem will help make our case stronger. And there's a third reason. The third reason is, before I come to that, just one other thing. Of many reasons that we all are aware of, and there are many scholars, not only here to my left and right, and I'm very proud to be the only man on this panel talking about women. I'm also a little bit intimidated, but don't talk about it. But I also know that there are many colleagues here in this audience who are as capable as any one of us to be right here and talking about their experience. So I'm hoping that in our conversation, we are able to invite at least a few conversation or questions from the audience. The only request I will make is, I don't want you to hate me as I and some of us stand between you and the lunch. So please keep your questions short, your interventions very, very brief. Finally, one of the key things that need to happen, among many other things, if we want to bring the change that we're talking about, it's about getting role models to my left and right, and many in the audience, from women, come out into the open and create an aspiration and can do confidence among young girls and young women. And which is why I refrain from using the term co-panelists, and I prefer to use the term role models sitting on both sides. And I'm very proud to be part of this, this gathering. Having said that, allow me to, in the interest of time, is it okay if I were to pass on introducing each of you to yourself? I will invite you to introduce yourself as you speak. And the question I'm going to raise to you is, from your lifelong experience and work on gender and gender-related issues, what are the one or two key lessons that you have picked up that you would like to share? And in particular, if there are very concrete suggestions that you would like to share with this audience, that will be particularly welcome. I will request you to keep your interventions to, let's say, about 5 minutes or so, so that we have some time for question and answer. Could I first turn to you, Dr. Shah? Sure. I know, you've been a champion on health. I know you've been champion on particularly adolescent girls. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Mr. Samar. Thank you very much, and I thank CSRBOX for having invited me to speak today. And I fully echo the sentiments of Srimati Vimla Devi, who's brought out exactly what I wanted to say. I mean, you've taken the words out of my mouth. But yes, I want to take you all back to ancient India, where women were respected. No puja could be done without a woman being sitting in the puja. And only when the invaders came in, the men were asking the women to wear a parda, because otherwise the beautiful ones are picked up and taken into harems. That is when the downfall of women in India happened. They were relegated to home, no education. They were unfortunately prisoners in their own home, and therefore they attended to all the domestic chores. The question is, no education, they become a financial liability for the family. And let's face it, health of the women is directly related, at least in places where there's not enough financial, sort of health. So if a woman is from a family where there is limited resources, the money is first spent on the man of the family, because he needs to survive to look after his family. But if a woman goes, she can be easily replaced. So that is the question. Why did the woman go back? Lack of education. And I'm not talking only formal education, I'm talking about education as a whole. Education in terms of her health. We say that there is no access. There was one of the speakers who said that the access is not there to services. Yes, access is not there because the demand is not there from the audience, from the people who are living in this country. The demand is not there because they do not know what they need to demand for. And hence it's our job to create that health awareness amongst women, and we start with the children. We start with the children. In today's days, children are on iPads, they're on the phone, they're on computers, they're eating unhealthy food, all becoming obese. And all the non-communicable diseases you are having today, you can prevent at that level. Stop all that. As mothers, as fathers, we have to stop that nonsense of what's happening in the country so that children can become healthy adults. Coming to young girls, what we have done for years together, for almost 20 years now, we have been creating information related to reproductive and sexual health. If you ask most of the girls in the rural areas, their mothers have never told them what is menstruation, when to expect a period, how to handle it. They suddenly one day bleed, they get scared, and they do what the mother tells them. We created the program, did a pilot for 5 years, showed it to the government. Adolescent reproductive sexual health got included in the school curriculum. But unfortunately, it went to all the states in the country. It depends on the ruling party. who decides where the material will go and where it will not be accepted, because health is a state subject. And I've always wondered why health is a state subject when everything else, related to law, related to finances, taxes, it relates to everyone in the country. Why is it only that health is a state subject? And that is something we need intervention on. Health should be a subject for everyone because it's women all over the country who need health care. This is the first thing I want to bring out. The second thing is that if you go to the government, different programs are available. Now we are talking about empowering a girl. If you want to empower a girl as she grows, you have to empower the boy too. The boy should have the awareness on his reproductive sexual health because there's so much of unsafe sex happening, there's so much of infection happening. It affects the health of the girls. And therefore, we need to have that education given to our young people, which is very, very imperative. So we talk about giving that education, and COVID taught us that it's not only physical education, we need to go into the digital space. And that's where we started the Too Shy to Ask app, which is an app related to reproductive and sexual health, where people in their own private spaces can go into their mobiles and get all the correct information given by the medical personnel, rather than going into blogs where there may be wrong information being given. So it's something we need to be, that the right information given, the demand will come from the young girls asking for information so that they will not have a loss of health. So I think gender equity important. Taking care of their health is equally important by creating a demand for that health care. That's important. And of course, we need to make sure that this is one of the things which I would recommend is that healthcare should become a universal thing and not a state subject. I think that's extremely important. There are many more points I would like to discuss, but I know we want to be brief and I could take up some other points later.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shah. You set standards not only in terms of very specific points and talking about, in gender we often end up talking only about women and girls, but men and boys continue to remain neglected, and you brought it out very well. You had some very specific recommendations. And of course, you also set the bar in terms of meeting the time schedule. I hope our colleagues will do the same. So I'm now going to turn to Rupali, if that's all right with you. One of the things that I was struck by from some of the things that you said is about how technology is pervasive, but how also, if not handled well, whether it's development, whether it's access, whether it's benefits from technology, it can actually aggravate gender biases. So I certainly would like to hear from you on this, in addition to other things that I know you would like to talk about.
Thank you so much, and thank you, ma'am, for throwing light on the healthcare side of how women are actually facing healthcare crisis right now. I think in terms of technology, I feel that there is so much technology available in the industry right now. There is access to technology, but I think what is available has been actually designed for men, keeping men in mind, not women in mind. So, there are tools which are there, but there is nobody who can actually teach these women how to use these tools. And also given that, the inequality on gender parity is at various levels, which is, there is a digital inequality, there is income inequality, and there is information inequality. So given that at this point in time, even today in 2023, 50% of women across urban and rural India, they do not use smartphones. So obviously they do not get the right information or data on how to use that technology. So this is very important, I believe, that, while we are providing technology or solutions to women, especially, entrepreneurs who want to grow and build their businesses, it is equally important to handhold them and tell them that, how you are supposed to use these tools for the benefit of their business and to grow their business even further. In addition to that, I think if we actually look at, if I may cite an example of financial services, if we look at the numbers, and I'm sure all of us can Google those numbers, that when women apply for loan, the rejection rejection rate is way higher than when men apply for loan. Unfortunately, even in this era where we are living, where we say that things are very equal at this point in time, women, when they go to apply for loans, they're not even paid heed to. They are always asked that do you have any support from a male member of the family who can come in support of you to be a witness when you are applying for the loan. This is also another example where technology can actually play an important role in highlighting that the data which is being aggregated by the financial institutions is evaluated or analyzed in a manner that this clears out the gender bias which has already inherently been there. So technology is there for sure, but we need to make sure that how this technology can be used for the benefit of everybody, not just for men.
Thank you very much. And this is particularly important because technology is now becoming more and more pervasive, and a lot of public services access is now increasingly dependent on technology. So clearly a very, very important area. Gauri, if I may turn to you. One of the things that has now emerged, it's recognized through Golden's work and Nobel Prize, is the multidimensionality of the challenges that women have faced for centuries. Of course, that her work is based on US data, but a lot of it actually applies also here. So, being able to look at the issues and challenges from a multidimensional perspective, as an intersectional issue as opposed to picking up only one or other theme, I think is something which you've excelled in. We would like to hear more from you, Gauri.
Thank you for that, Samarji. And you're right. If there's one thing that really comes through when you spend any time doing gender work is sort of any social impact issue is a giant knot, and gender is really at the heart of that knot. It's sort of the original knot, if you will. And so it's really hard to take apart any one theme or issue to work on. And the flip side of that is that there is immense potential for really a 360 communal shift if you're able to address gender issues, gender equity and economic empowerment. And what do I mean? Let me think of an example. You want to work on TB in urban India. Yes, it's a public health issue, but it's also an urban infrastructure issue because women are home, the houses are poorly ventilated. You want women to go out of the house, you need to work on safety and prevention of sexual assault and violence. If you think of schools and education, yes, it's girls' education is a literacy issue, absolutely. But it's also a sanitation issue. You need to work on toilets and infra in schools. So young girls, particularly once they reach menstrual age, feel comfortable going to toilets. It's also a water access issue. You provide access to water supply at homes. Then there's the time, resources, labor that can be repurposed for girls to access education. So one thing to think about is teams really have to be nimble when you're thinking of solutions. Focus is great, specialization is great, but you've got to be able to have expertise in more than one area and be able to think laterally. The second lesson, and this is a lesson for me that I feel like I keep learning and relearning, and one side of that is intersectionality. I would say the other side of that is humility. Anytime we feel like we've arrived at an answer, we've stopped questioning. So anytime you're thinking of a solution, gender is something none of us are exempt from, any kind of gender dynamic or issue, right? So it's important for us to keep thinking of our social location, our relative privilege when we are going into a community that we work with. Is the solution presumptive? Is it autobiographical? Am I projecting something on this community that is making sense to me? I think of a story from years ago about this financial literacy program. The money was raised, the modules were developed, there were amazing partners, the system was really well put together. A lot of thought went into it. That was done with all heart. And the women in that particular collective weren't signing up. And when a conversation was had, they said, "Humko truck chahiye." And it really was such a aha moment because that was financial sort of empowerment for them to be able to take the produce they were growing to the nearest marketplace. So I would say the second lesson is never to speak for the communities that you care for and work with, and invest a lot in listening and relaying as opposed to deciding for answers on their behalf. So yeah, so the second thing is, yes, intersectionality. How am I implicated in this? What am I bringing here? What is my history, baggage, assumptions, presumptions that I need to give up on? And that really is for all of us gender practitioners a lifelong process.
Thank you, Gauri. I think it was very humbling to actually listen to some of the lessons that you shared about the values that we need to also bring in addition to all the scholarly understanding and experience in this matter. Thank you for bringing that up. And very importantly, Nayana, I know you shared with us also about the importance of engaging with the dreams and aspirations of young women, and not just about the challenges, etc., and doing it across generations. It'd be lovely to hear from you to see how do we create that sense of aspiration and the confidence that young girls begin to believe that they can do it, they can be seated anywhere here or in this audience or outside. Would be lovely to hear from you on that.
Thank you, Samar. And it's actually great that you have called me last, because it was such a privilege to hear all of the other panelists. And I was just taking notes from them, and do we really have the answer? No, Gauri, because we work with adolescents and we find we almost never have the answers. Adolescents are constantly challenging us to think more, to think beyond, because they are questioning us all the time. And like Samar said, we know that the challenge is intergenerational. It's a long-term challenge. We know gender-based discrimination and gender-based violence stay there in our societies because the norm says that it is acceptable. And Breakthrough as an organization wants to change that norm that makes gender-based violence and gender-based discrimination acceptable. When gender-based discrimination remains acceptable, what happens is a girl is told what she can become. It's not about her dreams. It's about what she has been told from the very beginning. How do a girl negotiate? She can't negotiate because she has been told that one of her best qualities is that she always listens to the adults. So when we started working with aspiration, we found that we have to go and first build the vocabulary around dreams and aspirations and skills and qualities. Our girls are never asked about these. They are not given a free-walled, open sky to think and dream and say whatever you want to do. And I totally believe that I'm kind of calling out to the CSR that this is a long-term game. It's not going to happen in 5 years. It's not going to happen in 3 years. Yes, organizations like Breakthrough give you year-on-year reach numbers, what is happening to the adolescents. But as we are seeing that we were talking about role models. And now with aspirations, we are seeing role models are being created in the community. This is the first time we are seeing that we don't have to, we have, as Breakthrough, we have worked on Sakshi Malik, and Sakshi Malik's father has written a letter to the fathers of Haryana saying that do not invest in your girls because, I'm getting goosebumps because he said that when you are going to invest in your girls, you will be known by your girl's name. You will be Sakshi Malik's father. Nobody will know your name. Do you want to do that? Yeah, yesterday I saw Miss Shinde, who came from Asian Kabaddi gold medal winner, and her father was standing with her with all pride. So yeah, it's a long-term game. So my first urge and my first lesson is that please do not expect anything to change in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It's a long-term game, and gender norm change has to happen if we have to change that. And the second thing is, let's talk about return of investment, because that's what I know CSR works. I have been very fortunate to work with 2 corporate bodies. I have worked with Tata's and the IKEA Foundation. So I know we understand return of investment. And return of investment, while working on certain business ideas, we know that they don't work short term. We have to be there. But when they start giving us dividends, it's richer in many more ways. So let's wait there, because we are talking about nation building. We are talking about a country wherein the PM talks about $1 trillion economy. Yeah? And if you look at the McKinsey's Power of Parity report, it says that we have the ability to bring women to work, which will add $2.9 trillion to the economy. And that can only happen when you, as CSR bodies, stay there long term, and you, as men, share your load at home, because it's not going to happen without you picking up your load, Samar, and putting you on spot with that.
I'm absolutely happy to play that role and do it in a manner in which you would like to monitor my progress. No, thank you very much. I think it was very important, even though, the choice that you would come in at the end was that of organizers and not mine. But I think it was very appropriate, because, the manner in which you kind of pulled it all together about changing the norms, being there in the long game. Continue to look at returns on investment, but don't become a prisoner of your own metrics, which is what currently is the problem. We say half of the population is women,
Yes,
and we still have only 17% contribution to GDP. It's not low contribution; it's poor measurement. That is the problem, and these measurements are decided by us. It's not given to us by others. So I think it's important to recognize that, we need to evolve these matrices in a manner such that the real contribution of women can be brought to the fore. So, there are people who think contribution is less. It actually is not less at all. It's less because we have chosen to measure it in a particular way, which gives the impression, a completely wrong, incorrect impression. And, thank you also for pointing out, as a country, our Prime Minister is aiming for all of us to work towards a $5 trillion economy. That cannot happen, just cannot happen, without adequately measuring, valuing the contributions from women. So thank you very much, and I truly appreciate. Sorry,
I want to add on that, by leaving out 50% of the population, which is women, it's definitely affecting the economy of the country. Absolutely. I think you must include women in making the country stronger and getting it more, sort of benefit from utilizing the resources which women bring. And that brings me to the point is that, when these young girls are not getting educated, it's not I think it's a fear the parents have that when they go from small villages to the school, they get sexually abused. They get, there's a lot of teasing, etc. happening. That's again because the boys have not been educated. Boys have not been educated on it. And second thing is, I think where we have concerned through the Metropolis Foundation, we have been offering them self-defense skills. And because they need to be confident that they can go on their own, the parents need to be confident that nothing will happen to these girls when they go. They can take care of themselves. And our experience has been that wherever we have worked in whichever areas for the last so many years, that self-defense training is something which is truly, truly appreciated both by the girls and the parents. So I think that if we can bring it into the system of training or empowering a girl, so we are empowering her with knowledge on health, we are empowering her with skills so that she can be financially stable and not be a burden on her family. And the third is giving her the skills to be self-confident and empower herself so that she knows she can take care of herself. She doesn't need a brother or a father or someone behind her to take care of her. I think we need to make her stronger. That should be our agenda.
Thank you. You've said it very well, Dr. Shah. Let me just open, I know we have 10 minutes. I'm just going to open the floor for questions. Please appreciate the fact that my role models here have really shown the path in maintaining time limit to no more than 4 to 5 minutes. So please be very crisp in your question. Don't give long comments. Yes, please, ma'am.
Yeah, so I just want to ask this question. When we want to change the perception, the norm has to be broken. There is so much entrenched in our traditions, in our festivals, which reinforce the patriarchy. Whether it is Raksha Bandhan, sorry, I don't mean offense to anyone on religious grounds, but I just find that these, and the term Kanyadan, all these just keep on reinforcing the fact that she cannot be independent, she has to depend. She is an object to be given away. Where and when do we begin to change all this? I mean, this is all flying in the face of, religion. It's a very difficult situation. So yeah. I rest my case.
No, thank you. Great question. I'll take a few more before I come to my role models. Yes, ma'am. I'll come to you.
I don't have a question. I just want to say, as a mother, if we have to change the patriarchal mindset, we have to train our boys to change their mindset so that the future generation, they treat the girls as equals and they don't feel superior. So as a mother, it is our job to change our sons also, not only our daughters.
Oh, great point. I just think that mothers are already so overworked and overloaded, to take more responsibilities. I don't know how it's going to happen, but great point. I completely agree with you, ma'am. Yes, please.
हेलो सर, माय नेम इज़ अश्विनी डुडेजा. मैं ट्राइबल्स और रूरल एरियाज़ में काम करता हूँ, स्पेशली वर्किंग फॉर वुमेन, जहाँ पे एक महिला 50 सिगरेट के बराबर इनहेल करती है और पेट में बच्चों की डेथ हो जाती है. दीज आर अनऑफिशियल फिगर्स एंड आई एम ट्राइंग टू सेव देयर लाइव्स. उनको स्मोकलेस चूल्हा दे रहा हूँ, मिट्टी के चूल्हे में खाना बनाते हैं. अब वहाँ पे भी उनके फैमिली पैटर्न्स में हमने देखा काफ़ी लड़ाइयाँ होती हैं और वहाँ पे आई एम जस्ट ट्राइंग टू सेव देम. सो माई पॉइंट इज़ कीपिंग हियर दैट हाउ कैन आई वर्क विद कॉर्पोरेट्स विद CSRs टू हेल्प देम. If you will help them, I will be able to help them.
Great. Thank you. Just one moment, please. I want to go back. Yes, ma'am. Do we have a roving microphone? Okay, after you, yes, the lady who's just raised her hand. Could I please go to her? After you, ma'am.
Sure. Hi, I'm Dr. Archana. I work with Change Alliance and we work on gender equality programs a lot. I just wanted, and thank you so much for talking about so many issues. Just wanted to point out 2-3 issues. One is, I think we should have taken up the unpaid care work when we are talking about economic empowerment. We should, in case we could explore a little more on the women's labor force participation and also engaging men and boys. You already touched upon, but how the burden is not always lying on women to look into the gender equity and economic empowerment and better working conditions when we are talking about the economic empowerment.
Hello, I'm Anshul और मैं पॉश एक्ट पे स्पेसिफिकली काम करती हूँ मार्था फेरल फाउंडेशन के साथ. सेक्सुअल हैरेसमेंट एट वर्क प्लेस, बोथ फॉर्मल एंड इनफॉर्मल. सो आई जस्ट हैव वन क्वेश्चन कि CSR क्यों रिलक्टेंट होते हैं generally, like there are few CSRs which are interested in these areas, but usually we find very difficult to look for CSRs who are interested in working on these issues, gender-based violence or behavioral change. Is it because impact बहुत सालों बाद आता है और tangible impact नहीं होता कि जैसे कि कितने नल लगा दिए, कितने उस तरीके की चीज़ें. So why it is difficult to look for CSRs who are interested in these areas? Thank you.
There were other hands. Yes, please, ma'am. Yeah. I'll come this side. I'm also keeping an eye on the wall.
Probably yes.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Nandita. I come from an organization called Corstone, which is now, of course, changed, and I see some colleagues. Hi, Nayana. So I think, very great points we've been talking about investing in the long, and I think someone asked the question that I wanted to ask that, if this investment is so critical, and I think there's a recent report that says that it's going to take 300 years to achieve gender, equality if we go at this pace, then, the investing in women always has to be for a purpose for someone else, and I think that is something we need to think about. We never ask why educate a man, right? We still ask why educate a girl, and I think a lot of us struggle with trying to say, say GDP बढ़ जाएगा, all of this, which is very, very important. But I feel that if the purpose of investing in women, in girls, is that they can just be who they want to be, rather than, for us to always have to prove. And, I think that paradigm needs to change to claim that more as something that's fundamentally of their self-worth, and not so much, that their kids will become better educated, etc. Because then you're putting her in the same gender role, that she's trying to break. And one of the things that I just want to add is that we do a lot of work on mental health and well-being, and we found that to be so fundamentally linked to this whole investment in gender equity, and we need more investment in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rupali, could you also take, not immediately, questions around the role technology can play in changing some of these things? We'll come to you. I'll just take probably one more question. I know you've been raising hand for a long time. So there are two people here, last two questions. See, I am hungry, so please, don't ask too many questions.
Very briefly, I think some of you spoke very nicely about the intersectionality of the gender issues, which is quite deep. But are there any good examples of having very balanced narratives from different, parts of the country, from different schools of feminism, and maybe grassroots communities of women that can help us be educated a bit more and not have a very top-down and a singular mono approach to gender equality, or just talking about what women want when there are all kinds of women and they have different contexts and different priorities and different philosophies as well. So if there are any examples, we'd love to learn from that. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. One last question.
Hi everyone, I'm Renu. I'm a lawyer and working for the Women's Rights Organization. I have a one question कि कल मैं डेटा देख रही थी CSR के पैसे का, तो अगर हम 2015-16 में देखें तो 6% वुमेंस राइट पे, विमेन एम्पावरमेंट पे था, राइट्स पे वो भी नहीं था, और अभी वो 2% पे हो गया. और हम 24 साल के बाद हमारा ये सपना है भारत का कि हम एक विकसित देश होंगे, तो कैसे हम 60 करोड़ वुमेन को इग्नोर करके होने वाले हैं? Here is a little dilemma about it. Just asking.
I'll turn to Rupali, but technology can play a role. But I'm just going to pause questions. I know that there are a few other hands. I'm going to turn to my role models and ask them.
I think technology definitely can play a role, and it is, and as Nayana said that it will not happen overnight. This will take many years, and I think everybody has a role to play over here. While technology is just a tool, and if I may cite an example over here, so how you can actually technology can be used by corporates or by various industry partners is there is a program that at Mastercard which we run is called Girls for Tech. And how we are doing this is that bringing more girls and getting school girls from age 6 to 12 get interested in technology. Lot of women or a lot of young girls feel that technology or the STEM area is not for them. So I think how technology is playing a role over here is that you catch them young, tell them that how these areas are also very interesting and they can make their careers in this. And then you train them through these years so that they can also tomorrow become technologists or engineers or maybe teachers of math and science. And I think this is like a small example of it, but I feel that the norms, the societal norms which we have built, and something which you pointed out, that how religion is being used today, that is something which will not happen overnight. And as I always say, that charity begins at home. As mothers, sisters, daughters, we have a role to play, how we can actually educate our family, how we can tell them that it is equally important to train men as well as when we're teaching our girls that you have to be careful when you step out. We also need to teach our boys that how respectfully you have to deal with women, what all you should do when you're talking to a woman. I think all of these things will take time, will not happen overnight, but I'm sure that and I'm quite hopeful that we are walking in the right path and we'll be able to achieve that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can. I think when you asked the question, I was thinking that, given the subject of the panel today, I could not talk about breakthrough much because breakthrough started with the motto of culture to change culture. So we started with Man Ke Manjeere, which was a very popular song which talked about domestic violence, and we thought that domestic violence is something that is not talked about. So similarly, we always say flipping the norm. So we use something. Let me give you an example. We talk about share your story. There is a hashtag called share your story with your son. Don't let what happened to you happen to another woman. So generally what happens is that whenever you are sexually harassed on the streets, it's generally asked what was she wearing, where was she, what was the time of the night, day, where was she, what was she doing there. Whereas when we started Share Your Story campaign, putting the spotlight on mothers, the mothers shared with their sons that they have been harassed everywhere. They have been harassed in a queue to a religious place. They have been harassed in a hospital. They have been harassed everywhere. Many radio jockeys came with us because they were waking up for the first time that everybody gets harassed. So this is how I think you change norms and change culture, because you cannot create a vacuum. A culture has to be shifted by a culture. It has to be like, if I go to a rural area, somebody would tell me that हम लड़की को काम करने नहीं भेज सकते because हम लड़की के कमाई नहीं खाते, है ना? It has to change, that taking pride in terms of my daughter's earning is so important. Similarly, when ma'am was talking about adolescent girls and boys, we work with all genders. We work with everybody in the adolescent age group between 11 to 18-year-old. Whoever is my classroom is going to be many a CSR. I must call this out here. Many a CSRs actually tell us to only report the girls as direct reach and ask us to talk about boys as indirect reach. We believe at Breakthrough that without working with the boys, you are not going to shift the needle, ever. I'll give you an example that it's a report which says that 1 in 4 boys believed that if a girl is harassed on her way to school, she can be taken out of school. It's a fair enough reason to take her out of school. But only 7 in 100 girls believed that that can be a reason enough to take her out to school. We have to bring the parity in understanding of gender-based harassment in boys and girls, and we cannot leave the boys behind. So that was my
excellent point. I mean, I can tell you that in Ford Foundation, we work with many different organizations across all of these areas. We continue to look for new partners. I know that some of them are, Ali is here, and Breakthrough is here. Yes, we have friends of Women's World's Banking present here. We learn from the excellence of the work that our partners do all the time. And it goes back to the point that, the values that Gauri was talking about in terms of the humility and the openness to be continuously in the learning mode as the world around us changes and teaches us new things. Before I come to you, Dr. Shah, could I first go to Gauri to respond to a few questions?
I'll take the CSR question. In all humility, as Samarji was talking about, and you were asking about, POSH, and you're right. I think that if CSR is, as CSR, there's a lot of work we need to do. I mean, we also have to work within the frameworks of the government. There's a lot of pressure and very anxious compliance and finance officers who are breathing down our necks also. But you're right, a lot of the work aims to be measurable, scalable, things we can put our names on, things where we can cut ribbons. And I don't say that for all organizations, but somewhere, often there is this idea that what's the business case for CSR? You know, somewhere we're still measuring the importance of social impact in this roundabout way of, and it, I mean, something like that leads us to larger existential questions about can corporates truly ever, you know, can a for-profit truly ever work in impact with the full integrity it needs to? Will it ever be fully absent from questions of branding, questions of expanding customer base? I don't really have an answer to that, but there are things for us to think about. In fact, I would add to your thing and say, it's not just where impact is difficult to measure, or slow. It's also, you know, social impact needs patient capital. CSR maybe needs to do a lot more, show a lot more willingness for capacity building. You know, we are very like 10% se zyada aap admin mein kharch karoge, then we really sort of look at it with a, so, you know, when the fact is that that's not true for a sales director or a marketing VP or any of the people. We believe in investing in talent. We believe that the more excellent your resources are, the better your work will be, then why not this? And absolutely, I do take it on board, and these are important, pertinent questions to think about. I also want to quickly just address one thing. Somebody was asking about what narratives of change. And I can think of some examples, but the one thing I want us all to watch for really is the way I think in the next 10 years, the visibility of the care economy, women's reproductive labor, emotional labor, you know, mental load of sort of carrying, running a household. I mean, if we are here on this table, it's because there's people at home, mostly women, who are doing the things that we need to be doing, right? Koi aur khana bana raha hai, somebody's putting my baby to sleep and we're here. I do think this is going to become much more visible. I think it's going to be a game changer, because the instant we recognize what's been causing those glass ceilings and glass cliffs, I think it'll shape the way we look at labor, the way we look at capitalism, the way we look at, you know, so many other things around women and their contribution to economic empowerment. And I promise this is the last thing I do want to say. There is, because we say this a lot, girls going out of the house and keeping them safe at home. And it really rankles me, because statistics will show that women are as unsafe at home, if not more. You know, rape and sexual assault is happening by a staggeringly high percentage by people they know. So just wanted to remember that.
No, thank you for saying that, because it's very important. I mean, you know, one of the programs that we are supporting is, thank you, is around safety of women in public spaces. And a lot of it is to do with, you know, the multidimensionality that you, in any case, spoke about, Gauri. So thank you very much for last word. Always, I wanted to reserve for Dr. Shah.
Thank you. Thank you. You're very diplomatic. Thank you very much. I want to say that, you know, the change has to come from within the home. Just as Gandhiji said, be the change you want to see. And as an educated mother, I've done exactly that. I have 2 girls. Yes, and everyone said, oh, you don't want a boy? I said, no, my girls are good enough. Educate them, give them the tools, and they'll show the world what they can do. And I'm proud to say that both my daughters are doing extremely well. One is not here, one is in the US, but one is in this country, and she's heading Metropolis. She's known as the top businesswomen, 10 businesswomen of Asia. And she's shown, right, she's done very well for herself. You educate them, give them the knowledge, and give them the skills. That's important. Now the question comes to is that you know, there was a very nice thing which I wanted to bring up. It skipped my mind now. But how sati was brought in. It took years and years and years before they decided that women should not commit sati, and it was against the law to let women jump into the funeral pyre of their husbands. So it's a law, it's not allowed. Same thing has happened with prenatal diagnostic test to find out whether it's a male child or a female child. The punishment is so severe, the doctor goes to jail for 10 years, the family goes to jail, and the in-laws and everyone goes to jail for 10 years. So everyone stopped doing it. Of course, and there are maybe people doing it otherwise. So similarly, now the Women's Reservation Bill since 1990 is going on. It happened in the villages. It happened in the villages. The village panchayats had the ladies who are heading, and they've done a great job with the economy of the village. But in the main parliament, women had not yet come to the percentage they needed to. And thanks to our Prime Minister, it's come. It's come. But yes, they say it will take another 3-4 years before it will be in. But I know that he will make it happen. And I'm very, very positive that it will happen, that women will come into the parliament, and then the women's issues will be more amenable. And I see it in my own practice today, educated mothers and fathers. When the child is born, they are happier when it's a girl child than a boy child. Believe me or not. I've seen it 30 years ago, 40 years ago, different scenario, totally different scenario. Second daughter, they are crying. But now they're very happy having a daughter. So I think things will change. I'm very positive about it.
So you see, I was not being diplomatic. I actually knew that if we wanted to end this panel on the most positive note, it has to come from you. Thank you very much, Dr. Shah. Indeed, it is, the time of change, as I began by saying, I really think it's a very opportune moment, led by none other than our own Prime Minister. Women's Reservation Bill being perhaps the most recent example of the potential that is now just been unleashed. Of course, it will take a few years, but I think we now know that we'll get there. And I think it's a very, very positive note to conclude the session. Time's up. Red screen is staring at me for a long time. So I'm going to close this session and just thank my role models on both sides here and many more in the audience. Thank you very much for your thoughtful, insightful comments. Truly appreciate it.